is the lease area here. They will be having, this is West End Road at the top of the screen. They will have existing access here, and then they're going to put the gravel, a little bit more gravel access here. So this is an existing easement to service these two properties here. There is an existing easement here. Telecommunication facilities like to have an overlaying easement themselves, so they'll be obtaining a non-exclusive easement for access here. And then this is the 40 by 40 lease area. We do have undergrounding from PG&E service is going to be here, and then some of the infrastructure, above ground infrastructure here. This line here, this purple one, is the Annie and Mary Trail, and which will eventually become part of the Great Redwood Trail. There are Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District line here, so the undergrounding has to be cognizant of that. We do have comments from Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, and then also the Great Redwood Trail Agency has some an encroachment requirement for this crossing. We do want to focus as much of the development into the one crossing instead of multiple crossings on the property. There is another non-active easement here, but the applicants did, agree to go ahead and use this access easement here that's already developed. When this trail is developed, there will be stop signs here, road crossing, and other similar things for standard to those trail crossings and when you have those roads here. Again, this is that portion of the wetland. I do have site plans and elevations of the structure if you're interested, or can I move on? I'll move on, and if you want to look at those, we certainly can take a look at that. The findings of approval includes the general plan and zoning compliance. There is in Chapter 9.44 quite a few details that we don't typically see because of the uniqueness of the telecommunication chapter, and so those are included in Exhibit 1, and staff recommends you make those findings of approval. There's a reduction of the 1,000-foot setback from a residence. Again, it's about 730 feet. Based on the alternative sites analysis, the engineering objective standards, and the limitations of the 1,000-foot setback, it was staff concurs that it was difficult to locate and meet those standards, and so we do recommend that the commission allow for the setback reduction from the 1,000-foot to 730 feet for the proposed location. There is a request to eliminate the landscaping area. That is codified not only in our land use code under the section, I think it's 9.38 for landscaping on all properties, but in the telecommunications section, there is special landscape requirements. The project is going to have a 6-foot solid metal fence that matches the siding of one of the buildings on the property. They originally were looking at like a chain link fence with some slats in there, but we suggested go ahead and match some of the siding there. So it's for at least 6 feet, it's going to be completely screened. There is that large 8,000 square foot industrial building in front of, between West End Road, the Mary Annie Trail, and then the site location for this. So there is going to be some screening. Landscaping is not going to screen a 100-foot monopole. The 6-foot will screen predominantly all the equipment there. There are some things that are above 7 feet there, but not much more than 7 feet of some of the equipment, ground-mounted equipment that will be there. And so, we kind of agreed that the applicant is leasing a 40 by 40 lease area, and then that's where the fence is, and then screening outside or landscaping outside of that. How much of control does the leasee of the property have over that? And so one of the suggestions that are in the findings and conditions of approval is that we take 10% of the landscaping that comes from codified in the landscape ordinance. It's a non-conforming landscape existing conditions. Now, let's take this, So the condition is 160 square feet of landscaping required for the property owner to submit, implement, and maintain somewhere on the property. And we want to give flexibility to the property owner for that, to get the biggest bang for the buck, provide for the on-site employees there, or even if there's any potential to do some landscaping that would benefit along that Anne and Mary Trail, we would appreciate that. The 160 feet is 10% of the lease area, and we feel that that is a good proportional relationship to the entire project. The attachment A, Exhibit 1 does include the environmental findings. We did a pretty exhaustive review of those, and I can get into more detail if the Planning Commission has any questions regarding that. Some of the conditions of approval meet the building permit requirements, and with the different departments, engineering, environmental services, and different agency approvals. The Regional Water Quality Control Board had some referral comments, as well as the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, and then the Great Redwood Trail Agency. So some of those are the outside agencies that provided additional comments, and those are embedded into the conditions of approval. There was a geotechnical report, and so one of the conditions follows that. Follow the groundwater management and contingency plan that would be from the Regional Water Quality Control Board suggestion. A routine monopole and equipment inspection is a condition of approval. Co-location, the project action is written to really incentivize co-location. So we want to, and the applicant did provide a statement that they would work with any potential service providers. And what we want to do is try to incentivize that by having the Planning Commission consider this approval for the entire site and all co-locations when they meet this action. So that if another service provider comes in and says they want to locate there, that they wouldn't have to get a new use permit as long as they obtain a zoning clearance that meets the conditions of this action, the findings and conditions of this action. So we felt that that would give a little bit of incentive for other service providers, instead of finding and wanting to get a new use permit for a new pole or a new tower, that they would go here and they'd find it easier to get that authority to develop that there. And we're just adding ground equipment. The 1,600 square feet of the lease area does designate areas for additional ground equipment for the co-location of up to 2 more service providers. And then there's also room on the tower or the monopole itself for up to 2 more providers. Then there's condition of approval for discontinued use and site restoration. If in fact after a while that service is no longer available, that we don't have that blight there. Recommendations, again, staff recommends you approve the vertical bridge use permit, minor use permit, and design review. Adopt the Class 3, Section 15303, categorical exemption, and then the action of the Planning Commission, that is Attachment A, including the findings of approval, conditions of approval, and again, it's based on the project description. I'd be happy to answer any questions if the commission has any. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Joe. The co-location topic is confusing to me. I'm reflecting or remembering back on years ago when I think at one of these meetings we recognized that the only pole that, transmitted for this area was the fake tree up behind HSU, I think. And since then, I believe we got one on South G Street, didn't we, about 10 years ago? And then there's the one that's supposed to look like a historic, water tank or something out in the bottoms at the bulb farm. And so my question is, I just don't understand the coverage issues well enough, of course, and what co-location means. So
Takes any service provider, or sometimes it's the service provider itself, the primary one that, foots the bill for everything, and that's kind of their so they have a little bit more control. We do, it is codified in our zoning ordinance to incentivize and require co-location. If a applicant came in and they showed their objective coverage justification and they said that we need this new service, we don't and they provide an alternative sites analysis, and within their bubble, this particular site is located to fill their needs, that would be certainly a priority, and that would, I think, the city.
It's not in any fine print anywhere, and it's not something you can leverage in the future. So it just, how do we, as a community, try to get the best service with the fewest of these kind of big, ugly structures that bring up a lot of pushback typically. This sounds like a great location because there's so little pushback. I'm shocked to see an application like this with no letters against it. However, I know there'll be more coming. I see signs up the beginning of Fickle Hill about a future pole, and I imagine that'll be a discussion before too long. And I think we just all need to get our heads wrapped around this. What does it mean? How do we have the fewest amount, get the service we need, and insist that they co-locate in a reasonable manner? I don't know if we can. I'm just pondering it.
I think that was more of a statement than a question, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do any other planning commissioners have clarifying questions for Joe or David?
I guess I would like to hear a little bit more about the environmental impacts, especially as it relates to the residents over there. I think you kind of referred to it, but I'm just curious if you could dive in a little bit more.
What type of environmental impacts are you referring to?
I'm curious what
okay.
you have.
Okay, so under attachment A, the findings for environmental review, we went through the list of exceptions to the exemption. Oftentimes, I think and we saw it early on, 20 years ago, when there were cell towers being proposed in the area, that the radio frequency was a major concern of public members, and rightly so. The Federal Communication Commission established safe radio frequency levels for the public, and that is the standard. A jurisdiction cannot deny a project based on those safety standards, and part of your packet does include a statement that they meet those FCC regulations for safety. There is special signing that is required for any employees that go, climb the pole and put those antennas up and are working near there. But they're usually generally safe depending on what the frequency is, the height of it, and the location of people on the ground and how much time they spend there. And so as far as environmental impacts from the residents, I would virtually say there's none. Would there, if you consider a view shed visual impact as environmental impact, there is some clutter. I do have some pictures of the photo simulation. There are some power lines in the area, and there is already some aerial clutter up in that area. There is a building that's 50 feet there and stuff. There's maybe some other equipment, but nothing like 100 feet. So certainly it is adding to their viewscape. The wetland is about 230 feet, well beyond any of our standard baseline setbacks for any wetland buffer or setback. Because of the site being associated with former wood products processing plant, there was a condition of approval that was established as kind of just a, go ahead and do it, where they did a limited site or soil analysis, and it came back negative for anything that was detectable and below standards. There were some arsenic and nickel levels that were considered to be background levels. I did confirm that with our city one of our city engineers who does a lot of work working down at the marsh right now, and they had similar levels of nickel and arsenic in that level for that. And there's my understanding is the Regional Water Quality Control Board is utilizing those as kind of background levels that are not caused by any other human activity to increase, and they're not considered hazardous to the public, general public. So there is the groundwater, soil and groundwater management contingency plan, and that was really associated with anybody working on the site, digging dirt, any of the, when they put that underground power for PG&E, they should be following that. When they do the foundation, and most likely it's going to be pilings that they're going to be drilling down and pounding down for to support the monopole. But all those should be kind of followed. There are no guy wires on there. There are no lights, and oftentimes guy wires and lights will attract avian birds and other species. And so, that is minimized by having the monopole itself. Noise impacts, I've heard from other community members, not on this particular project, but other ones that they're concerned about noise impacts. And the application did include statements that they would follow the decibel requirements as associated. And that goes to the property line. And it's an industrial site, so I don't think the residents, are going to have any noise other than what they already from the ambient activities of the industrial site. I'm not sure. I probably.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I was tickled by Dan's question, so I looked it up just to see what jurisdictions do to incentivize co-location. And I know you mentioned, well, first of all, having mandatory co-location policies. So obviously, as this is going up under that agreement, that's been taken into account. But it also says that at this stage of it, that's jurisdictions put in permitting advantages, reduced fees, and favorable zoning status to make sure there's an incentive for incoming providers to go through that co-location. I was just curious how much of this is just, an ethos of the department, or if there's a policy in place for that moving forward.
We've only issued, this is our second application for a cell tower in Arcata. The one up by Cal Poly is on state property, and they did not obtain any permit from the city of Arcata for that. There's the one on South G Street, and I was not the assigned planner. I'm not aware of how they handled the co-location, but it was our staff that put together the ideas like, well, how can we incentivize this? And, Commissioner Hickey, you mentioned some of those as being, to try to have that co-location. So we do have the kind of mandated one. How strong is that mandate? When there's different engineering requirements and coverages that each service provider will have. But then it does with the zoning clearance how it's conditioned is that they would submit an application pretty much very similar to a use permit application, but it would be streamlined, just focusing on those items needed. The pole will already be there. There'll be some antennas already there. We'll have the ground area already established. So many of the things that are under consideration tonight would be duplicative with another one. And so we tried to create that incentive by adding that and being pretty explicit by putting in the findings and the conditions of approval.
Any other questions from folks?
Yeah. And I maybe the applicant should address this, but I'm interested in what level of communication has occurred with the neighbors that are 730 feet away.
Yeah, I think the applicant will give their presentation. They can address it at that point. And there's no requirement in our planning process that they do that.
So there was no noticing that went to the neighbors?
Our noticing goes within 500 feet of the project area, so this would have been outside of that, I believe.
Well, the agricultural property might have been within 500 feet. I can maybe take a look
double-check
at
that,
I can
yeah.
maybe double check that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or then we could also hear from the applicant and maybe get answers to, yeah. Are you guys okay with me opening up to public comment? All right. I'm going to open up public comment. Since this is a public hearing on a discretionary item, the applicant may go first. We will not limit your time, but we ask that you be succinct. The public will then have the opportunity to comment on the project. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will have the opportunity to comment or rebut any statements when all public comment is complete. This additional due process is afforded applicants on quasi-judicial matters. When I open public comment at large and you are in, sorry, this is a little typo. Once I open public comment at large, if you are in person, please feel free to line up behind the lectern. If you are on Zoom, please raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon on the right side of your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone. The clerk will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. Feel free to state your name for the record. Can we please begin with the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Hannah Boris, speaking this evening on behalf of Vertical Bridge. On the phone this evening, we also have Samantha Herman and Bill Lewis with Assurance Development, whose firm completed the original application, and they're also available to answer any questions regarding property or lease negotiations or things like that. We'd like to thank Planner Joe Matier and city staff for their assistance with this application. I have a very brief presentation to go through, and then I'm available to answer any questions. You can go ahead to the next slide. So just to start with a brief summary, as Joe outlined, city staff recommends approval of the proposed facility. In addition to the use permit, minor use permit and design review are requested solely for 2 exceptions. One being the residential setback, where the applicant has requested to deviate from the 1,000-foot residential setback. The facility is located outside of the city's telecom constraints boundary. And we would like to note that courts have found similar setbacks to be unenforceable. And we went into further detail regarding that in our application materials. In terms of the requests for relief from the landscaping standards, the telecom facility design and development standards allow facilities to be screened by existing development, which is proposed here in lieu of landscaping. We also recognize condition number 12, which requires some additional landscaping to be implemented by the property owner as part of the project. The facility otherwise meets all applicable city standards, is consistent with the general plan, and will fill a significant gap in T-Mobile's in-building service coverage. The applicant has shown the project will comply with FCC regulations for RF emissions through the submission of the MPE letter, which is included with the application. Vertical Bridge respectfully requests your approval this evening. Vertical Bridge did submit a deemed approved notice. Per my meeting with David just before this meeting, we understand there may be slight disagreement in the facts. So that aside, we'd just like to note that Vertical Bridge does reserve their rights to make those arguments later, but our preference is to continue working collaboratively with the city, which is why we're here this evening. Next slide, please. So this slide just really highlights some of the statistics which are driving, the need for T-Mobile's network improvements. So I won't walk through all of these individually, but just in summary, what this tells us is that, for example, 79% of California households rely on wireless as their only means of telephone communication. Those numbers trend higher for households with children and for renting households. And the overwhelming majority of calls to 911 are made from a wireless device. The statistics for California households are actually tracked very closely year over year by the CDC. And what we see is year over year is these numbers continue to increase as California households essentially go wireless and cut the cord. So it's a constant challenge for our industry just to keep up with these network improvements because the demands on the systems are just ever increasing. Next slide, please. So this slide shows T-Mobile's gap in coverage. So the map on the left is existing service as it exists today without the proposed facility. The target coverage area is denoted by the red square there. And as you can see, all areas not highlighted in green have a service gap of reliable in-building service coverage. The map on the right shows the service improvements with the proposed facility at 100 feet. And what this shows us is that with the service improvements, reliable in-building service coverage would be extended to an additional 1,388 residents in the community. Next slide. And these are just two photo simulations of the proposed design. The first is looking northeast on West End Road, and the second is looking southeast on West End Road. The proposed monopole presents the slimmest silhouette, is compatible with the surrounding industrial context, and is designed for co-location by up to 2 additional providers, which reduces the need for future standalone towers in the area. And just maybe to touch on some of the questions that you had regarding co-location. Vertical Bridge is an infrastructure provider, so it's their business model to construct towers for the purposes of co-location. T-Mobile is the first anchor tenant, which is why they are the co-applicant on the application. But it's Vertical Bridge's entire business model to build towers for co-location. And the industry, generally collaborates with that. It's in everyone's best interest to co-locate rather before pursuing a new tower, because it just provides much faster speed to market, and it's a much cheaper alternative than someone going out and trying to invest and build a brand new standalone tower anytime they want to service a community. Next slide. And that concludes my comments, and I'm available for any questions.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm glad to hear that the business model fits in with the co-location goal. That's great. When you said 1,000 and something people will have increased service, is the dorm building that's nearby part of that? Because that has like 900 and something students in it, or will? Or do you happen to know what's the targeted
I'll leave you
jurisdiction?
the exact service objective for this facility. So it says this proposed facility meets T-Mobile's coverage objectives of providing in-vehicle and in-building wireless coverage within a geographic area not adequately served by T-Mobile's network. Specifically, this facility is intended to provide 4G and 5G coverage and capacity relief to the growing residential and commercial traffic in the city of Arcata. Specifically, this includes Laurel Tree Charter School, the Mad River RV Park, local hotels, the Mad River Community Hospital, and the surrounding vicinity. Additionally, this facility will improve service along the busy 101 freeway and California 299 that serves traffic to the east of the city. So that's the general service area objective.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to open it up to general public comments. General members of the public will have 3 minutes each. If you'd like to say anything, please line up behind the lectern.
Bob Vegas, I'm just property owner. Thought I'd come and check it out. It does look like it would cover that.
Sorry, it records you and puts you on
It
Zoom.
does look like it would cover that new dormitory right there. So, and it's just next to a gravel crushing facility. I mean, I don't know how I'm gonna, not me, but them, they'll impact it. But that was it. I was just seeing how we went tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? Okay, with that, I am going to close public comment. Would anyone like to say anything further about this proposed cell tower? I gotta say, I was looking at the photos, and 100 feet is not as tall as I thought 100 feet was. And I just want to throw that out there into the world. It seemed to fit in very well with the surrounding area. And yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I might be. I was just saying, are we looking at for a motion at this point, or do we want further discussion?
I'm fine with that.
I was just going to add that I'm surprised, as I mentioned earlier, to not see anybody from the public here, and that shows that this location really, they found the sweet spot, So
Yeah, it's hard to think of a better, like a place within the city limits that would be further from, yeah. All right. Well, would anyone like to make a motion?
Do we need to use all the language in attachment A, or can we just make a motion to approve the exemption?
Yeah, you should at least include the adoption of the class 3 categorical exclusion first. And if you read the recommendation, starting with, right after staff recommends the planning commission chair, I'm sorry, starting on the second line there, your motion would begin, I move we approve the minor use permit, et cetera, et cetera. Use permit, minor use permit.
I'll make the motion. I recommend that the planning commission approve the use permit, minor use permit, and design review by adopting the California CEQA subsection 15303 class 3, new construction or conversion of a small structure, categorical exemption, including the action with the findings of approval, the conditions of approval, and the project description and plans.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good luck. Thank you for your application. I hope it wasn't too painful. Okay, we have no business items tonight. Do we have any correspondence or communications from the Planning Commission that anyone would like to share? Any from staff?
Thank you.
None from us, thanks.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is going to be my probably my last presentation for the Planning Commission, as I will be retiring at the end of the year. So it's my last project that I've been assigned, and yeah, so it's I waited for such a fantastic group of commissioners before I could retire. So I thank you so much, giving me the opportunity to go out there and work really hard now.
Yeah. Congratulations and thank you for all your years of hard work.
We
That's
should have
the end
made
of
that
an
last
era,
one
Joe.
harder.
How many years? Yeah. Well, thank you for all your years of service and for your attention to detail. It's incredible.
I concur. Thanks, Joe. We're going to miss you.
Okay. With that, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.